Hey everyone, my name is Shukla, and I'd like to say namaste and welcome to Financial Chakras Abundance Through Alignment. And today we are going to be talking about a subject that everybody loves. And in this subject, we are going to talk about getting grounded about your money, exactly what to do, and how to take care of it. Because many times I find many entrepreneurs, individuals, I was a financial advisor for almost 30 years, and what I found over and over and over and over and over is people over spend. And when you overspend, there's a mechanism that's going on internally that you're following, and we're going to talk about budgeting today, and we are really going to get dive into that subject matter today. So I have a guest here who has been doing this for a long time, and they specialize in this subject matter. So I figured it's a great idea to have a fantastic conversation. So my friend, please help me welcome Paris. Hey Paris, how are you, buddy?
Good, Ash. Thanks so much for having me on. It's exciting to be here and chat with you.
Exciting to be have you as well, my friend. Okay, thank you for being here. All right, my friend. So tell us a little bit about. First of all, let us know where you're from, and yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, you bet. I actually currently live in Utah, but I've been a financial advisor. I was also a financial advisor from 2001 till the end of 2015, and then I became a financial educator and coach. And I started a YouTube channel and in 2019, and then about a year ago, I really started getting out and getting more active with helping people with their financial literacy. I just feel like the more people know about money and finances and how to manage it correctly, the better they'll do. And frankly, there's a lot of people out there on social media and influencers teaching people how to make more money, but nobody really teaches people how to manage it after they make it. And so when you make a bunch of money, that's great. However, you can get yourself into trouble if you don't manage it correctly and you don't do everything that you can to turn that income into wealth. And that's kind of what I like to do is I help people. I want to help people turn their income into wealth and really build something worthwhile, build something of value, something that they can actually say, you know what, maybe one day I can actually retire, or maybe I can actually do something that may be a little bit more, maybe a little bit more, fulfilling for them because the money's taken care of.
I love that idea. Right? So thank you so much for that because I agree with you on that. I meet Paris, like I met some people who are making so much money. I'm
Hmm.
talking millions, right? And as a business, and I
Hmm.
find that they don't have money saved up, and that is just a very sad conversation because here you are making millions, at least your business is making millions, and then when it comes down to your personal stuff, you haven't saved enough or you haven't made enough, and that just becomes a very sad conversation. So I figured like that's why it's important to those of you who are listening to really really make sure that you manage properly, and more importantly, what this will do is it will give you a opportunity to really get grounded and
Hmm.
making sure that you have a internal satisfaction that you are taken care of, like you will feel safe and you will feel secure. So let's start with that, Paris, with that in mind. What do you find most people when they are struggling with money, when they finally start saving money, what are some of the things you find in common that they really start feeling?
What's interesting is that you can do a bunch of Google searches or Chat GPT even for strategies to do things, and you can get some great budgeting tools. You can get some great things out there. But what I found is more often than not, it's really having a lack of accountability. Also, another big theme is that people buy things. There's this old saying, the old keeping up with the Joneses saying, people buy things that they don't need to impress people that they don't care about. And why do we keep doing that? And it's just really an interesting. I feel like that right now, especially, there's so much consumerism that people are constantly bombarded with ads, with the psychology of, hey, buy this, buy that. If you buy my thing for 19.99, you'll have all the happiness in the world. And you don't have happiness from buying things. Although things, there are some things that can bring us temporary happiness, but I feel like there's an overall attitude of consumerism that people would rather buy more things than actually save and invest for their future, and or even have like a cushion, a savings cushion that's really nice and large to be able to weather the storms of life. And so I feel like that's a big thing. That's a big thing to me is that most people just have the consumption attitude and a consumption mindset. They want to have the next biggest car, the next biggest boat, the next biggest this, that, or the other. And when credit card companies, especially, they're kind of one of the biggest proponents of this idea is that, you get a credit card that's, your limit's $10,000. Like, oh, I got $10,000 I can go spend. And no, you don't. Stop. So there's a lot of people that I think that when they can learn how to really understand maybe some of the reasons why they buy the things that they buy, because I think it goes back to mindset a little bit. Like, how did you, when you were growing up, how did you see money modeled with your parents or your friends' parents? And so a lot of times we did never talk about money as kids. In a general population, we don't talk about money. Money's one of those taboo things. And I feel like that's a lot of the reason why we are so bad at managing it, is because the only thing we ever really hear about money is all the fun things you can buy. And so everybody's like, well, as soon as I get money, then I got to go buy. Well, we need to talk more about saving and investing and really managing it and staying out of debt. And instead of buy now, pay later, we need to save now, buy later. And that's some of the things that I'm seeing constantly or consistently.
I love that. So let's just suppose that somebody is looking to buy something, right? First and foremost, what are some of the steps you say that they should follow in order for them to make the decision whether they should or should not purchase that item?
That's a great question. One of the things that I do is I just check it against my value system. Like, is this product or service going to bring me value? It's going to add value. Actually, let me take a step back from that, because I think that a lot of times people don't have their overarching, like their macro level goals. What do they want to accomplish financially? A lot of people tell me that they want to be financially free. And I'll say, well, what does that mean? And they say, well, I don't know. I just want to be financially free. Well, you got to define it, like really get clear on what financial freedom means to you. And then what happens is that when you let's say that financial freedom means to you that you're going to have a couple $1 million in the bank at 50 years old, and you're 30 right now, and you want to make sure that you get there, and you're on track, you have a goal, you have a plan. Now, when you see something come up on your Amazon cart, or you're shopping at the store and you see a thing that you're like, oh, that looks really cool, I'd like to have that. You can say, wait a minute, is this going to fit within my goals? If I spend the money today, will that take away from my goals, or will it add to the values that give me because we don't want to be so destination oriented that we don't enjoy the journey. So it's important to enjoy the journey along the way as well. So there's some things you should buy just to give yourself some joy and happiness along the way. But if the purchase you're going to make is going to keep you from obtaining your goals and your financial goals, then that's one red flag. Another red flag is, do you really need it? Is it going to sit on the shelf? Is it something like, for example, anybody who's a father, I'm a father, I got 5 kids, and anybody who's gone shopping with kids knows that the kid wants to buy everything in the store, like every toy, every this, that, or the other. So a lot of times the kids are like, Dad, I want to buy this. Okay, great. If I buy you that for you, how long are you going to play with it? Like, how long are you going to use it before it becomes something that you don't care about and you want to buy the next thing? And so that's something that I check as well. When I go to buy something, I want to say, do I really need this, and do I really want it? And if I do, and sometimes I'll give myself a cooling off period. I'll say, I'm going to put it on a list, like a watch list or maybe a wish list that I carry. I have a little pocket, piece of paper. I'll just put it on the wish list that I have. And I'll say, that's something that I really would like to have. Let me make sure I still want to have it in a week or in 2 weeks. And if I still want to have it in a couple of weeks, then it might be worth buying, because it's something that I'm consistently thinking about and consistently wanting to have. So I would say, first, does it fit within your overall arching goals? Is it going to push your goals back farther, or is it going to bring your goals closer to you? And then is it something you're actually going to use? Because even if you have all the money in the world, it doesn't make any sense to buy everything, because you just don't have the room for it. You don't have the time for it. So buy things that bring you value. And I think that there's a really good movement called the minimalism. And I think that if you're kind of in that attitude of minimalism, you don't want to buy everything anyways, because it's going to clutter up your life. And so to have peace and have kind of some more serenity, quite often less is more. And so before you make a purchase, make sure that it's going to fit all of those criteria, and then maybe a few other criteria that you determine yourself. But I would suggest having a predetermined set of criteria that before you go buy something, kind of it's got to fit within these rules or these criteria that I've set for myself before you purchase it. And then if it does, go for it. If it doesn't, maybe wait. and see if it will, maybe down the road something else changes and you can get it later.
I love that. So basically, you suggest that, so like, let yourself, instead of buying it in impulse and out of excitement, let your intuition talk to you, and really listen to yourself. So those of you who are listening, I want you to understand what Paris just said, right? Basically, energetically, from your point of view of chakras and energetics, okay, he's saying that yes, your heart center might be singing to you, say, screaming to you and say, this is a good idea, buy it now. Instead of doing that, just pause and go into your other energetic centers and listen, and just say, okay, do I really want it or do I really need it? And
Hmm.
in order for you to make that distinction, right, one of the best way to go is like, what is the best way to really, go from one state of being to another state of being, is simply breathe. And
Mm,
that's what Paris is saying, is just breathe. Just take a second, take few days and think about it, and then go back to decision. And that is
yes.
a great way to put it. So thank you, Paris, for that, right? Okay, so when it comes to budgeting, when people are budgeting their money, or so when somebody wants to budget, okay, let's say they're making, say, let's just say $5,000 a month,
Okay.
and from the $5,000 a month, how should they budget out of that? Like, what percentage should go into saving, what percentage should go into investment, what percentage they should take to pay off debts? How should they do this?
Well, there's really a lot of in so personal finance is very personal. And so I can give you the overarching kind of the macro level rules that most people should try to kind of shoot for. But at the same time, I want you to realize that you've got to do your best with what you have. And I think the first step in budgeting is really getting clear on your income and your expenses. One of the things that I teach my clients to do is look back over the last 90 days of all of their expenses. Look in their bank account, their credit card statements, really do the work because it's going to be revealing and it's going to give you some amazing, I think, insights into your spending habits. So in order to change a habit, you need to know what it is first. And so yeah, I tell people, look at your habits over the last 90 days. What have you done with your money? Where has it gone? Where have you been spending it? And then you can get clear on, oh my gosh, I make $5,000 a month and 4,999 of it is getting spent on and 1,000 of that is on goofy stuff that I don't really need. So if I was to tell you, if you make $5,000, 50% of it should be on fixed expenses, 30% should be on variable expenses, and 20% should be on saving and investing. And you don't even have $10 in your budget. You're going to look at me and say, Paris, you're crazy. There's no way I can save 20%. So that's why I'm saying first, look at your spending habits, look at where your money has been going, and then you can determine if you still want it to go there. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And so if you are constantly in a treadmill, constantly feeling like you're on the rat race, it's probably because you're spending more than you need to be on things that you probably don't need to be spending money on. So I would just start with that. What is your budget? And that actually in business, that's called a cash flow statement. And I like to use the word cash flow statement versus budget because a lot of times when you hear the word budget, you get there's this weird energy that comes and you're like, oh, I don't like budget. But if you think of it like a cash flow statement, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. To me, that's kind of cool. So it gives you a different set of energy, I think, going into it, thinking, oh, I'm going to really learn where my money is going and what's happening with it. And then once you do that, you can start to say, you know what, maybe I can't save 20%, but maybe I can save 5%. Okay, start with it doesn't matter the amount. Of course, the amount is important, but the habit of doing it is more important than the amount. So if you can only save, like if you do your budget and you're like, oh man, I make 5,000 and I got 50 or 60% going to my fixed expenses, which are those expenses that never change. I got 30 or 40% going to variable expenses, grocery store, shopping, going out to eat, all those things. I only have like a couple of dollars left. Well, now it's time to take a look and say, where can I cut back on my spending, or how can I make more money? Because you need to start saving. You need to start saving 10%, 5 to 10%, like is kind of the bare minimum. And then if you can get to 20%, that would be excellent. I hope that
I,
answers the question.
no, it does answer the question. So that is amazing, because so what Paris is saying, guys, like, when you are doing this, Paris, what you're saying, is that when someone is really looking to save money. Because I had a client, she was at about, husband wife team, and they're on a pretty successful business, and they pay themselves pretty well, and they were literally upside down. And I'm talking like upside down, I mean, like they had obviously expenses way more than the income. So
Hmm.
that's a upside down scenario. And over time, like, that they were anxious, they were angry, they were uh, agitated all the time. There were so many emotions going through internally that they
Hmm.
just couldn't stop themselves. And then finally, like, I sat down with them, and we did. When I'm sure you are experiencing the Paris, that when they do the work, yes, it is this particular scenario of, like, you can solve a problem, or you can evolve yourself into a solution. And in this case, they evolved themselves into a solution, and now they're much more happier. So question for you, Paris, is that when you are dealing with people, what type of emotions you typically see people go through when they are not in sync with what they should be doing, and then what emotions you see them go into when they are finally going from one place to the other?
Yeah, that's an excellent question because it's so powerful. I believe that money has more to do with habits, behaviors, and beliefs than it does with math. And so the emotional state of somebody, as you think about, if I say to you, for example, for whoever's listening, if I say to you, for example, okay, it's time to pay the bills, what feeling do you get? Do you get
Mm.
stress? Do you get anxiety? Do you get frustration? Do you get overwhelming? Do you get like does your brain kind of just shut down and you feel like you're clouded in your thinking? Those are all the feelings that you have because your money is not in control, because you're not in control of your money is in control of you. And so what I tell people is like let's start to get control of our money, and let's tell our money what to do. Like let's stop having our money tell us what to do. Or even the marketing department and the commercials, the people who make these commercials on and advertisements are experts at getting you to an emotional state where you're like, oh, I gotta buy it. It's almost like we're the moth going into the light, right? Oh, the light, I gotta do we just go right in and we spend our money. And so I feel like people who are overwhelmed, stressed out, full of anxiety, completely just cloudy, and it just really blocks a lot of the positive peace and energy. That's because they're not in control of their money. Once you start getting in control of your money and you start becoming clear about what's happening, the clarity happens. Your mind starts to open up and you start to become clear. You start to realize, you know what? I don't feel a lot of stress. I don't feel a lot of anxiety. I know exactly where my money's going. I know exactly what's happening. I had a client recently that they had a they we did the budgeting. We did a cash flow statement. We did a balance sheet. They kind of were excited to grow their net worth. They actually had paid off about $9,000 in debt in 3 months without changing a lot of their finances. And so then they're like, Paris, something just happened. We had to our car broke down and we had to buy a new car. I could tell they were stressed out. They thought, oh my gosh, all of our goals, all of our plans, we were so good. We were getting out of debt. We just ruined it all. Like they had this feeling that they had ruined it all. I said, well, let's look at the numbers. So we sat down, we looked at the numbers, we came up with a strategy, and every single one of them decided to, and they said, Paris, we're not as bad as we thought. And I said, exactly. And so because of that, they felt better about their situation, and their situation went from stress, because it is stressful to have to buy a new car and have to, your car breaks down and all the debt potentially and the financial issues, not just to, not not to even mention the frustration of which car do we buy, but the frustration financially that they went through. Well, knowing that they didn't actually ruin their plans, they didn't actually ruin their goals, helped them to have peace about it. And they were like, Paris, this is so good. I can't believe we feel so good. We know that what we can't, life happens. We had to buy a new car, but we feel so good about it because we know that it really didn't ruin our plans like we thought it had. And I think that's what clarity does. It gives you the chance to take a deep breath and say, you know what? It's not as bad as I think. It's not as bad as I thought. And you get a lot of peace and happiness and joy. And I tell people, who talk to me, I said, you're going to have, after you deal with me, you're going to have to find something new to stress out about because, when you have clarity around your money, you're not going to be stressed out.
I totally understand that. So, I find out what you're really saying, and those of you are listening, I want you to know that what Paris is really saying here is like this. Look, all your life you've dealt with money. And money is a subject that most people avoid because it's deeply emotional. And
Mm-hmm.
when that subject matter is deeply emotional, because you've been telling yourself a story, maybe the story is my parents were like this, so it must be like that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the story is, no matter what I touch, it always turns into something really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the story is, whenever I do something, whenever I think about manifesting money into my life, right? Whenever I look for manifestation, it never works out. Maybe the story is that, whenever I get money, I lose it all. Right? Or maybe the story, maybe, just perhaps, maybe your story is unlike anybody else, and you say, you know what, no matter what I do, I always go downwards. Perhaps your story is, no matter what I do, is I always gain it, lose it, gain it, lose it, gain it, lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Or your story is, you know what, I never can seem to get out and I always feel stuck. So those are stories that you're telling yourself internally, internal stories. And when you are in this fear mode, because you're looking to deal with something, it feels like when you're lifting a weight, right? Just
Yep.
in your energetics, right? Because the fear, anxiety, and certainly comes from your root chakra, your first chakra is at your base of your spine. Those of you who don't know, chakras are seven energy centers, and the
Mm-hmm.
root chakra is at the base of your spine. So fear, anxiety, uncertainty, and also certainty and a sense of safety comes from that chakra. So what's happening is safety and certainty has been turned off. So think of it like an on-off switch or a grounding mechanism where it makes you feel safe. But what you've been living in is fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. So every
Mm-hmm.
time a situation happens in any area of your life, you normally amplify your feelings 10 times larger. So in this case, Paris, like had they not had you in that scenario, right, they basically amplified their feeling of how bad it is when they
Mm-hmm.
went to buy the car. But the reality was that they were actually better off than they were before. So when you face your financials and make sure that you're saving money, you will actually reverse that, and then you go, "Oh my God, that's unbelievable." But the
Mm-hmm.
reality of the matter is, you are really getting yourself grounded, and you are really getting yourself into safe and security zone. So,
Yep.
Paris, when you find this mechanism with people, typically how long somebody takes to actually get to that level?
Well, I think that it starts after they see the when somebody starts with me or starts with getting their finances act correct, there's going to be a lot of anxiety that first when you first start going through all of your expenses. You're going to see some anxiety about even doing it, and you're going to have anxiety and stress after you go through, especially if you go through with your spouse.
Hmm.
And I highly recommend you go through with your spouse, but I highly recommend you do it and remember to be kind to one another because you're both kind of coming to an awareness of, okay, you're actually going to be vulnerable and share, like, I've been spending money on this, and then your spouse has been spending money on that, and you may not know and they may not know, and so be kind to one another, realizing that this exercise is all about becoming awareness of your situation. Once you're aware of your situation, then what happens is you've got to establish a new set of habits. Once you know what your habits are, you can say to yourself, is this habit taking me where I want to go? Is the habit, the belief, the behavior, is it taking me where I want to go? Is it going to fulfill those goals and dreams that I talked about earlier in the show? Is it going to help me get to my goals? Is it going to be is it part of my plan? If it's not, then those are habits and behaviors and beliefs that you need to change. And once you change those beliefs, what do you change them into? Well, if you don't have a coach that helps you change into positive, you're going to have a harder time. I think it's going to take longer if you don't have a coach because you're going to trial and error your way into things. But if you have a good coach, it's going to accelerate your time frame and you're going to get to the point where you feel peace and confidence around your money and how it works way faster. One of my clients, I think so the first month we met a couple of times that month. And in the first few visits, there was a lot of stress. But once they started to see in the second month, they started to see it all. Like I told them about what we were going to do and how we were going to make some changes. And they actually, I didn't tell them, I asked them, what changes do you want to make? And they said, these are the changes we want to make in order to get there. And I said, good, let's do that. And so as in the second month, as they started to implement those changes, they started to see that it was working. By the third month, they actually had a month of doing it. And then the second month of doing it was, which is by the third month, they start to really feel like, oh, wow, this is working and we can do this. And so I would say it takes at least there's a book called Atomic Habits, which is really good. And it talks about how habits are really formed over time. And there's a common theme or theory that, after 30 days, you can form a new habit. And what Atomic Habits kind of gets into is that and you could do it over 30 days, but it's more about how many times you repeat the habit versus how many days you do the habit. So if you can repeat the habit 30 times in 10 days, you're going to be way better off in 10 days than somebody who only does it once a day and waits 30 days, if that makes sense. So the idea is the repetition. So the more you repeat those new good habits, the faster you're going to get to the point of clarity. You're going to recognize, like I asked my clients after about 2 months, I said, how are you feeling about your stress levels? And invariably they'll tell me that our stress levels are way down. Our anxiety is way down. Our clarity is way up. Our confidence is up, and it's good confidence. It's not overconfidence. And so I would say that at least 90 days, 60 to 90 days, I think is really kind of that sweet spot where it really starts to kick in and people become aware, wow, I've made some changes and they're working. I think that's about the time frame that it works. I would say that the longer you go, the more awareness and the more insights and the more aha moments you'll have.
I love that. So the insight and the aha moments happen as you're moving along, and you're beginning to save the money, for the future, basically.
Mhm.
And so as people are saving money for the future, Paris, the the feeling of safety, right? When
Right.
do they ultimately acquire that? Like, does it happen after the first time right away, or does it take some time for them to really have that peace?
Well, I think that as people start to change their habits from buying now and paying later to saving now and buying later, they start to realize that once they save money for something, they can actually save money faster than they thought. So they ended up being able to buy things with money they've already saved, and then that safety net of emergency funds, like if you have a bad, if you're in sales or if you own your own business and you have a bad month, where you got to pull money from somewhere, and hopefully it's not from credit. Hopefully you have a good, nice savings, or maybe you're working at a job and you lose your job and you need to be able to have enough money. So I would say that once people begin to see that their savings account is growing, and that could be after the first month or two. Once you've disciplined your spending, or once you've got intentional with your spending and you're like, wow, I got money to save, and then they put it in the savings account, I think that piece begins right away. Now it will grow from there, because I think that's a seed. Once you plant the seed of that peace and that serenity and that kind of confidence that you've got some savings, then it will grow. It begins to grow and it becomes wonderful. The more savings you get, the more that will get and grow. And then from not just savings, now as you start investing money, now you double up on that, because you have a nice cushion of savings, and then you start to really grow your money and grow your wealth. I think you start to see, wow, this is working. And I think the peace can come. I think the seed of that, what you're talking about, and that emotion of just happiness and peace around having savings, I think that starts when you make your first deposit in the savings account, and then it grows from there as you begin to build that savings to the point where you have 3 to 6 months worth of money, so that if anything happens, if your car breaks down, it's fine. I got money in savings. Your house, something happens with your air conditioning or your water heater breaks down, it's fine. I got money. I can do it. I can deal with this because I got money. And now it's still a stressor. Nobody likes to have their car break down or their water heater go out or their air conditioning go out. But knowing that you have money set aside to take care of those emergencies and take care of those things that invariably will happen in life, it just brings you a lot more confidence and peace, or at least it has for my clients, and it has for me personally. In my personal life, I have a fund for home repairs. I have a fund for car repairs. So when my car breaks down, I just go to my fund, I pull the money, and I tell the mechanic, take care of it, whatever needs to be done, and it's fine because I have the money already for it, and it's so peaceful. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, because this also it goes into, because that one simple habit also pours into other things as well. So like, Those of you are listening, I want you to know that these are all very changeable, controllable circumstances. You might have a credit score that you're looking to improve. You might have savings you're looking to improve. Maybe you're just wanting to get a better life, and it's all possible. What we
Mhm.
are discussing here with Paris today is just possible. It all it requires is for you to just sit down and just go through the step by step process of budgeting your money. And when you budget, like, I know budget is a bad word. Budget is like a big bad word, like a big bad wolf. Okay, and I promise you, if once you go on the hill, I've been on the journey. Once you go on that hill, and you figure out that there is no such thing as a there's no monster there. It's just a sheet of paper with you and your spouse sitting down and just going through it. And energetically it is tough because it is money is very close to our emotions, and
Mhm.
it brings out things in us that we don't want to talk about, we don't want to do, but it is crucial component. So I want to, those of you listening, I want to say thank you so much for today. Paris, I really appreciate you for today. Thank you so much for this education.
Mhm.
Guys, like, if you're listening to this, you want to make sure that you get get aligned and get grounded. When you get grounded with money, right, your root chakra, your all of your actually energy centers, every single chakra will begin to feel safe and secure. And once you
Mhm.
do that, you get to go make a difference. So some of you might want to make a difference in other people's lives. Well, the way to do that is, when the plane is going down, you got to put your mask on first. And
Yep.
that's the deal here, where you put on your mask by budgeting and moving things forward. So with that in mind, I want to appreciate you, my Paris. I really appreciate you, my friend. Do you have any last words you want to tell the audience?
Yeah, I actually created a program that a strategy to help people with this very process. If you go to my website at parisclough.com/free book, that will give you the opportunity to download my book and go through a process of really getting clear on your finances, getting clear on where your spending is, getting clear on your income. I share a funny story that happened in my life with my wife and I about how I learned this lesson kind of the hard way. And so I think it would be really good. That's a free book that anybody can download, parisclough.com/free book, and just read that book. It's an actionable book. It'll tell you the steps. And then if you want to follow me anywhere, I'm all over. The Paris Clough is easy to find. You can find me on YouTube or on Instagram or any of those places.
I love that, Paris. Thank you so much for that. And those of you listening and you wanna find this episode, or somebody who's looking for this episode, you can go to financialchakras.com. You'll see my website that's kind of like going down at the bottom banner. So just go to financialchakras.com and you can find this particular episode. And you really want to find Zen in your money, come to my daily wealth manifestation. You'll see it on my website, daily wealth manifestation, where you can join me on every single day when I do manifestation. I hope you get aligned so you can deal with looking at your money and making sure that you create the new habits that are necessary so you can reach your Paris. And that way you can get to your destination that you deserve. My friend, my wish to the universe that may give you all the health, wealth, and happiness that you wish for. So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you and I love you guys very, very much. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this particular podcast with the people you know who can really use ways to save money. Thank you so much for everything. I love you very, very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Namaste, and I'll see you next time.